Hey guys, Fred Kynes, all kinds of classics here again in this episode. This episode is not worthy of a full increment from 29 to 30. This is only worthy of one half of one increment to episode 29.5. The reason for that is we're still trying to get the HEMI in, and I still got to do some things to the frame. So here I go in and I start to make some clearances because basically I don't know how much I talk about it, but need to get that engine down a little bit, just a little bit more in the chassis. I want the oil pan to be at the level of the front cross member, hopefully slightly above it. If it's a half an inch below it or better, I guess I'd find that acceptable. But the key to this whole thing is to get it as low as I can and keep it safe. But the cross member is the big guard in the front of the vehicle to keep the dead bodies from wrecking the oil pan. So that being said, here's what I'm doing to modify the frame and get that engine mounts finalized and get that sucker welded in. So take a look at it. Throw me some comments. If there's stuff you don't like, let me know. It only helps me. Okay, here we are. Took and cut an eyebrow out. Made that eyebrow the same on both sides. That was important. Where I'd drawn the lines for the header trace, you can see that one. This one is the one up here. Okay, that's the beginning. What I wanted to do is make sure that the bottom side of the header, because the swoop is in here, looking at the header again, the swoop is down, down and back. And so he's coming down and angling back, and that's that profile right there. I wanted to make sure I grabbed the closest spot to the frame and a significant amount. This was the original drawing to allow for material thickness, but obviously give me the gap. So then I just nibbled. There's the first triangle, pieces, all along while I'm taking my piece of 3-inch tubing and just laying them up there. Nibble, 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 so on and so forth. Now, you can see I dropped out, that piece dropped out, but that was the end profile. So now that I know that I've got the top the same, actually that one's more conservative because I had to clear this out, then I'll take and now make a paper pattern. I'll fold paper over the edge here, mark the edge, and do the finger, dirty finger pattern and cut around there. This piece I took and it's not ground or anything, but I just slowly brought that shape as close to flat as I can. I can bring it more to flat, but as flat as I could to transition as best as I could far below my mark line. My mark line was right here on this side. You can see it right there on that side. Then, as I lay in my piece, I begin trimming. Whoa. I begin trimming my piece up. So he sets in. Sorry about that. So he sets in, and I have to make sure that I have material on both sides of the weld to all the way around. Got some adjustment because I had it placed, but it fell. This side is going to overhang right now. I'll position that. I'll mark the top, the material thickness, and the bottom, and I'll shave this side once I've got this properly placed. It's pretty close, but I'll keep shaving. I can see the bottom isn't right. She needs to slide over because I had that setting good. So anyway, I keep positioning and nibbling until I've got a perfect shape. So next step, dirty finger, mirror to cut it out, transfer it to that side, following the angle, draw it on, cut it out, and come back. And cut the other piece of tubing to the mirror image of this and begin tacking it up. There we go. All right, what do we got here? Almost 6 o'clock. So what did I do? Stripped it back. Yeah, I burned a little bit of paint, but I stripped it back and made sure I had clean metal. Continuously welded them in. Okay, and then I finish welded the engine mount. She's a little hot, still, well, a little warm right now, but she's ready to finish grind, and there you have it. They drift out to flat. You can see the presence of my weld bead just a little bit outside of the flat area. So we'll take that down and clean that up, and voila. I think it's a cool accent to the frame. It makes the engine look like it was designed for it. That's all part of the custom theme, I guess. But she's gonna get in there, set her down, tack up the pad for the trans mount, pull the trans mount out. Now I've had conversations, and some of you are saying, hey, you put that into a triangle. Getting that sumbitch back in there is gonna be a sucker. So how I do that is I go to, like, those are all 3/8 bolts, 3/8 bolts. I go to 1/64 over, okay? In a typical hole, you know, like if you get a washer or a hole for any other type of a mounting, factory mounting, it's typically a 1/16 over on the drill size, on the diameter. So I start real low so that I can get perfect alignment, and then I come in and I oversize the holes. Now, noteworthy is, okay, so this is going to have a vertical load on it. Noteworthy is that with 3 bolts, 3/3/8 bolts clamping it down, that's plenty of holding power. But I can slot these horizontally in an effort to get the bolt in and slide it back. Remember, it's bolted across here, then it's bolted up to the cross member, and of course that pad will have slots in it too, as all pads do, just for minor adjustments and minor shifting of the motor as you're putting it in. Some of the concern is you start to get paint on this, and you start to get build, and you start to stack things out, and that hole gets smaller there, and that cross member gets wider. You know, all those kinds of things have to be taken into consideration when you're building this. But yes, indeed, just simply going raw, building all this thing out, and then finishing it all off, bolting it in, and saying, "Oh crap, what am I gonna do? It won't fit." So I start tight and I work my way toward keeping it as tight as possible. But I did not want to mount to the bottom of C channel, purely for structural integrity. I like the cross brace concept. Yeah, it's going to have a hat there, and it's got the hat at the bottom, but I like the fact that I can have as much, build in as much strength, structural strength into the chassis as possible. So that's why I'm up at that angle. That's why I'm grabbing the channel above the midline and at the bottom, so that I'm pulling and holding that whole assembly together, unitizing it. So there you have it. That's the accomplishments of the day. I've got a couple before the weekend, a couple of days left before the weekend, and I got plans for the weekend, for at least Saturday. But I do want to get back into this, get strong on it, and have the engine in. So, thanks much. Till next time. Okay, strong work day, and Now it's 12 and a half hours. Well, no, it's after 7. It's almost 8. 13 and a half hours later. And spent some time in the garage and got them all ground out, welded the ground. Turned out real nice. Turned out real nice. Very happy with them. Cleaned up the edges of the engine mount too. Radiused them so that the ends, the caps, look like one piece in a stamping. I really am happy with the way I cut that square tubing on the edge of the corners to give it a longer radiused surface there. It just looks so much nicer. All that's tied out, welded in. Both sides turned out very, very nice. It's got a very nice top profile. Yeah, there'll be headers stuffed into each side, but they're symmetrical. They look very good, and they offer the strength back into the chassis, you know, close out the boxing and look integrated. So the next move, of course, is to put the engine back in. If you recall, put that guy back in and finish out the tranny mount, and then work my way to the back, the cap of there. Probably have to raise that. Good news is the rear differential is in. Back there's the housing. Above it's the axles, the pumpkin or carrier, and in here's the disc brakes. Nice setup, rear discs, and then all the hardware, the bearings, brake lines, all that stuff. So that goes in next, and we begin the chassis build. I still don't have the brackets, the front mount brackets for the links, but I can start to build out the rear differential, get that kind of assembled and ready to go. So hopefully by the end of the weekend, because I have to leave tomorrow, and today's Friday, but by the end of the weekend I can build this back, get this staged and ready, decide where I'm going to cut that to raise that. Transmission tunnel will be going in the car, but I can get that engine in, get all the stuff out from underneath it so that it's bearing the load is being borne on the chassis and the jacks, of course, and then I can move on from there. So made some progress tonight. Time for me to go in, get ready for bed, clean up, that kind of thing. But very happy with the results. We're making some really, really good progress. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. All right. Put a skirt on it so you can kind of get a good look. Fabbed up the trans mount. That's all in, bolted up. Brought my hole size up 1/16 on the diameter, and she bolted in just perfectly fine. So what I'm doing for the trans mount is again a piece of pipe. It's rolled up, so I followed the roll on both the front. This is hard to do. And the back. Then I tied it in to the back side of the tube, welded it up, sprayed it with texture paint. You can see I got some body work to do on it, but I'll sand that down. I don't like it. I thought maybe I could do some kind of cool look, but I didn't like it right after I shot it. Anyway, that's in. The transmission is supported. I put in the old Dodge truck, the donor engine. I cut the drive shaft so that I could get the front yoke. Of course, it's an aluminum drive shaft, and for the 2.5 feet that I'm going to the rear end, I don't need I'm not that overly concerned about an aluminum, and it's certainly not that excited about the diameter. But I am going to use this profile to build my the balancer here, the harmonic balancer on the back. I'm going to use that to come in and build my tunnel cover, or my top brace, pardon me, my top brace for the X-frame. So that'll be an integral solution to keep my distances where they need to be, because you can see the you know, if I can cover that, I can get over. Whether I use that or press that off, probably press it off. I don't have a long enough drive shaft to create a negative harmonic. Anyway, I am really happy with it. Put the disty in and the valley cover on. Set on the thermostat housing. That housing will have to come up probably a couple of 90s in a marriage, some like into the front. And again, the intake manifold is going to cover this up, but you can see there's a significant gap there. So he'll be over the top. Whether I go with the long plenum or not, you'll be able to look down through the runners and see it. These will be capped. That's the exhaust crossover. This will be tapped, as will that, for water passages, for heat and temp sensor, those kinds of things. So it's coming along good. You can see, I'm just right there on that runner, but that runner is going to go up. I want my runners to be the same, relatively close to the same length, if not the same length, but I'll have to clear the disty anyway. So of course this head is farther back than that head, but I couldn't put the oil fill on that side because the disty's in the way, and you kind of get the picture. So I don't intend on modifying that tube at this point. So that's the disty from the Magnum engine, which is basically an LA series engine, and they slip right in. I just need to get a different shaft so I can go all electronic on him. And so everything's welded up. Everything's bolted in, and she looks good. Easy starter clearance. Maybe a little challenge on turning. Not totally comfortable with the height of the headers, but I got to get up and underneath it and looking at it, because I think the exhaust is going to need to sweep, but it probably has to go under the starter before it sweeps back through there. It'd be nice if I can keep it at the midline of the frame, because that's where those are at. So there's always a challenge, but I'm not overly concerned about it. It's just that I bought these plated headers, which will be blue, as soon as I start the engine. But I think that's a cool look. It's a cool nostalgic look. So here we have the beginnings. Again, as I said in the last video, started on the front, moving to the back, and the next challenge is that hoop, and then deciding on that cross member, and a little bit of assembly on the rear differential. Actually, this winds up being a pretty good. I don't have the rear brackets, which is probably good for me because my attention deficit hyperactive disorder is kicking in, and I just really want to go to town. But realistically, what I should be doing is maybe going out of town for tomorrow, which is the plan. But I can get some minor odds and ends kind of cleaned up over here, get some painting done, that kind of stuff, the component painting and all that. So pretty soon we'll start dressing this thing up and getting her looking pretty. I think at this juncture, the front of the chassis, other than minor tack-ons and stuff like that, but I think I'm at the phase where I can now paint all the way back to this point. But so I'll fab that, address that, and maybe assemble the rear end and bury it up against the, strap it up against the housing to try to get a drive shaft angle on him. At the point that it hits the frame, which it won't, it'll hit the bump stop, but at the point which it hits the frame, That'd be the total maximum height of the trans tunnel. So, excuse me, there are certainly opportunities for getting this all finished, and then I can finish painting the frame and start stringing the gap fuel lines, the brake lines, and all that stuff. So, wow, that is just freaking pretty. It's pretty. Thanks, folks. One more brief one. I was walking, getting ready to leave the shop. Looked to my left and saw that. Well, I remembered that. I remembered all this work right there. Remember the exhaust. Remember firewall. It goes in underneath there. But wait a minute, that's the valve cover. Top of it right there. Engine block's got to be down like right here. So then I came around and I haven't had this on since the engine mount. So then I, squared it up. Yeah, with a universal, like, that's good. I can go on almost a horizontal plane. Maybe I can snake behind that header. But then I'm going almost horizontal, right? Come out relatively horizontal. I get to the firewall. It's starting to get strange. So that gets a guy thinking. And that's what'll keep me up at night. How am I going to do that? But there's always a solution. I can honestly say, right now at this moment, I am totally confused. It doesn't matter if that was a rear steer, front steer. None of that matters. None of it matters. If it was a rear steer, I'd have even a more complex problem. But because this engine is so large and takes up so much room between the rails, there are going to be challenges. There are going to be challenges. But you know what? We'll get past them. What are they? Not a frickin' clue at this point. But I do know that it's just mechanical. It's just a function of a number of different things that provide a positive link from the steering wheel up here, from the steering wheel to there at a 1-to-1 ratio. That's what I know. So I know half the people watching this are thinking he's going to go chain drive. He's going to whatever the ideas will come aflow with. But that is one certain obstacle to overcome. But like with any build, like with that, anything, there will always be challenges. We're working on a 1930 Dodge. And the result of a 1930 Dodge is they're narrow. 24, 25 inches. I mean, we're talking, there ain't a lot of room. So we need to kind of consider always being creative. Don't ever stop, guys. Don't ever stop. Think about what you need to do. Think about what the condition of the situation is and how you're going to get there. There's always a way to work through these things. It just sometimes gets a little more complex than obviously running to the scrapyard, popping a hood, looking at it and saying, "Oh, that's how they did it." That ain't always the way to solve the problem. Always consider safety as number one. How am I going to do this and survive when I put 100,000 miles on it? Not that that'll ever happen on a street rod, but the fact of the matter is that you're kind of always considering a certain design factor with certain parameters and certain attributes that you need to accomplish to make it work. Thanks, guys.
Hey folks, another look. So now that we've got the engine in and the transmission mount made, everything's lined up. It's in the place that it needs to be in. And we talked a little bit about this move here and this rear cross member here. So I took the I took the differential and I put it on the center line, raised it up, and then moved the chassis, got the weight of the chassis on it. So at this time, we're into fabrication of the brace for the cross member or for the X member here, and I think we need to raise this. That's all the way up to the frame, and you can see, probably from the universal joint to the universal joint, about an inch, a little better than an inch. At full compression, beyond full compression, because clearly we're going to have bump stops. They'll be on the coilover shocks, but that contact's going to occur before it contacts the frame. However, if I go all the way to the frame, I know that regardless of a failure in any mode or a condition such that one side touches or the other and the other one doesn't, any dynamic that occurs, I want to be able to make sure that my drive shaft doesn't interfere with my floor. So I've gone around and double checked everything. I'm very comfortable with my the vertical location of my engine, that it's as low as I intend to make it. And the advantage here is, or the intent here is, ground clearance. I want as much ground clearance as I can possibly achieve. And now at this point, I didn't go off and level the frame, four corner the frame, because I'm not concerned about that anymore. Now I'm concerned about the fabrication of the clearances for the dry shaft. When I get back to building up the four link, then of course I'm going to come back and level the frame, check my square, and then go in and start to build the rear four link. Now here, I'm still thinking, but I think I can form a piece. It's going to have to be 12 gauge. The chassis here is 11 gauge or 10 or 12 gauge. I'd prefer 12 gauge. And then I'm just going to come in, do a loop, come out over there, probably make this piece long so that I can copy that profile in this swoop here. Then of course I'll have to cut this section out, and I'm going to try to tie it in so it looks so that it looks like one piece when it's done. The way, as long as we're here, I can kind of show a little bit about how the rear suspension is going to work. This piece here is the upper control arm. This is a triangulated setup. So the upper control arms will come off of here. They'll come down to approximately 1 inch above here. The lower control arms then will be down here, and they'll go straight across over there. It's a relatively simple setup. The shock mounts, 1 by 1 by what looks to be 10 gauge. This will be welded in at some location here. The shocks will go down. I'll put some angle on them. The shocks will go down and attach to this. This will be cut to length. I can't believe I actually purchased this as part of the kit. Go figure. In any event, that's what this process is going to involve. Is at this point in time, I'm going to construct the bracing for the top of this and the top of this. My mind's racing because there are so many options that I have available to me right now on how I want to do that. I don't want to build a ton of weight into it. One of the options was, why don't I just come all the way, do something decorative and come all the way back and tie the whole shit and mess together in some form of a bracing that pulls this together. But I am so rigid right now with the chassis that I don't think that's even necessary. So at this point, that's where we're headed.